Welcome back. Well, today's topic is by request. Someone had written in and said, what about food storage if you're on a keto diet? And based on the number of comments from people that I have received who are on keto diets, we need to do this. So this one should be fun and easy. Say hi, Audie. Yeah, you notice for once he's staring at the camera. He's not sticking his butt at you. I'd say this is a big improvement. Yes, you're learning, aren't you? Keto diets. Apparently, a lot of you are living carb-free lives. And some of the things we've been talking about in terms of emergency preparedness in the past have really been very high on the carbs. Pastas, rice, oatmeal, wheat, my goodness. They've got wheat that's been stored forever. And in fact, I know I spoke about this because one of the concerns that that the Mormon Church has is that sometimes in order to meet the requirement for food storage, because Mormons are required by their church doctrine to store 2 years of food. And some families will just go out and get 2 giant cans of wheat and say, okay, that's it. Because wheat lasts forever. But of course, you need to be able to deal with it. You can't just have a giant can of stored wheat. But it does show you that some of these foods that are very high in carbs are very storage friendly. And for a lot of us, we don't think that the low-carb foods are storage friendly. For example, meats, cheeses, fish, vegetables. Yes, I'll cut you right here. They are. My own cabinets. That's not for you, but you don't like it anyway. Tuna. No carbs. Very easy to store. If you are on a keto diet, in all likelihood, you've got a cabinet stuffed with tuna. Remember this? This was something I got specifically for my food storage. Little Vienna sausages. That was 42 cents a can. Let's pull this one out. Sardines. Not everybody's cup of tea. I have to admit, this is where my Viking ancestry comes out. Yes, my people lived on sardines, and I sort of genetically have a taste for them. But very inexpensive, about $1 a can. This, though, clams. This is minced clams, chopped clams. Well, yeah, thank you for helping. This is also clams. But this can probably has about 12 grams of carbohydrates, as does the other one. They're both Bumblebee brand. That's because they have sugar in it. This one, which is Bar Harbor brand, 0. So, lesson to be learned here, just because clams do not have carbs, whatever it is you're picking up, be it clams, sardines, tuna, whatever, check your cans. There may be hidden carbs in them. And you might not think so. It says clams. You're not expecting that it's clams in sauce. This should say clams in water. No, it's in clam juice. Okay, we've got clams in clam juice, but we've also got clams in clam juice and sugar. They're just not mentioning the sugar. Check the ingredients. I grabbed this out of the cabinet too. Chicken noodle soup. It's about 10 grams of carbs per serving. And for some people, that's half their carb allowance. For others, it's more like 20%. Depends on what kind of keto diet you're on. That's all. And I would still say take a look at something like this, because comfort food is important when you're under stress. And if you're living out of your survival rations, odds are you're going to be under stress. So give that some consideration. At 10 grams, yeah, it's half your day's carbs, but you're probably not in a situation where you're going to be tempted by a whole lot of other stray random carbs. This is something else. Ghee. This is clarified butter. And this one is garlic flavored. I keep mine in the refrigerator. You don't have to. You can keep it in the cabinet. This one has an expiration date of October 2020. I am going to take this expiration date seriously. And here's why. I don't know what preservation technique they used on that butter. If you go online and you're beating me with your tail, dear. Okay. If you go online and you look at canning butter, you are going to find all kinds of methods. Not all of them are considered safe and appropriate. The safe and appropriate way is with a pressure canner. That's simple. Anything else? No. But there are so many ways, and so many people think that their way is perfectly acceptable. I'm not taking chances. I'm going to take a good hard look at that expiration date and treat it seriously. The United States Department of Agriculture, and that's sort of the ultimate authority on safe canning, they do not recommend canning butter. The reason, however, they don't recommend it is strictly economic. It has nothing to do with safety. This came out of a pressure cooker. It'll last 10 years and you're fine. So don't worry about it. But the USDA says butter is cheap and reasonably available, and when you consider the expense of the jars and the fuel for the cooking and so on, it's not worth it. But we're not talking about the economics of the situation, or we're talking about survival food. So our criteria is different from the USDA's criteria in this situation. When you're talking about preserving or storing preserved food for a keto diet, you're talking about storing more expensive foods to begin with. Because a keto diet is very low in carbs, but it's high in fats and proteins. So your fats and proteins are going to be meats, fish, butter, cheeses. These are your more, well, other than the butter, of course, these are your more expensive foods. Other than our 42-cent can of Vienna sausages, this is a lot more expensive than a box of pasta. No two ways around it. So already, if you're on a keto diet, you're eating more expensively than someone who is not. It's just that simple. But obviously you're doing this because of other considerations. And as we just stress, buy what you, when you store, buy what you eat what you store. So if you're going to go into a situation where your food storage is completely different than your daily diet, and if you're on a keto diet and your food storage is full of pasta, you're either not going to eat it or you're going to start getting sick when you eat it. Whenever you make a major change in your diet and going from 20, 30, 50 carbs a day to 600 or 700, that is a major, major change. And it is the kind of change that will probably make you sick at a time when you probably really can't afford to be sick. You'll be under stress anyway because you're living on your survival food. That means something's gone wrong. So you're already under pressure. So you don't want to change your diet. So how do you cope with that? Well, do you have to live on tuna? Of course not. there are many, many already preserved meats out there that we're probably just not aware of. Any deli case, you walk into a deli case, things like the bologna, the salami, the pepperoni, these are all cured meats, and they will last. You can get a whole salami, not like, sliced in the deli case, but like an entire salami. Throw that into your food cupboard. Frankly, I would be sure to store it in a jar, in a box, in something so that it doesn't attract vermin, but definitely it will last. People have been preserving meat. And I saw an article, I don't remember when or where, but the title of the article was 23 Common Ways to Preserve Meat. 23 common ways. Imagine how many uncommon ways there are. Brining, salting, you can pound it with fat and vegetables. That's what the Native Americans did. God, goodness, can't remember what they call it. It was something like pelican, but that's not what it is. It's just, for some reason, a picture of a pelican comes to my mind. It'll come to me. But people have been preserving meats and fish this way forever. Fish can be smoked. They can be salted, like salt cod, bacalao. There are so many things you can do. Eggs can be, they call it glassing. You put eggs into quicklime and water. And quicklime is something that's it's very, very cheap, but you have to buy it in fairly large quantities. You go down to Home Depot and get it in the building supply section, because I think they use it to mix with concrete. So when you buy it, you're getting like a 20-pound bag of the stuff. Preserving eggs in quicklime is the easiest thing you can possibly imagine. You can go on the internet and watch a tutorial, and in 3 minutes, you're an expert. You just mix your quicklime with your water and put your eggs in it. How hard is that? And the eggs will be preserved. Cheeses. Many cheeses they come in a rind, which is it's almost like an eggshell around the cheese. Beautifully preserved. Hard cheeses, aged cheeses. The term aged cheese ought to tell you these things will last. So already there's a huge, huge supply out there of ready-made. You go into the store and buy your already preserved meats and cheeses. The eggs you're going to have to do yourself, because I don't know anybody who sells preserved eggs. But how easy is that? Go to the store and say, I want a pepperoni. You can also can your own meats. You can take beef. I would not take good quality steak beef. I wouldn't take a T-bone steak, chop it up, and put it in a jar. I would go for a much less expensive cut of meat, because it's pretty much going to be stewed till it is very well cooked. Let's put it that way. You cook it in your pressure canner, and you can can meat as easily as you can anything else. And if the idea of just canned meat, picking up a mason jar full of canned meat doesn't appeal to you, throw a little tomato in with it, and, meat in tomato sauce. You can do that with all kinds of meat. You can do it with beef, pork, chicken. You can even do it with fish. I have canned fish. Some fish will can well. Others not so much. But if you do it as, say, part of a recipe, for example, a can of clam chowder, you're good to go. Depending on what you are accustomed to eating, you might have to preserve your own food. Don't let that stop you in your tracks. Yes, hi. Okay. We'll come around this way. All right. Don't let that stop you in your tracks, because there are so many ways that do not involve pressure canners. Um, and it might actually be fun to make your own beef jerky. You can get sides of bacon. It's already preserved. And of course, bacon is another one of those big keto meats. So take a look at this. Fish, same thing. Vegetables. Now with vegetables, your options are a little limited. You can have canned vegetables. I personally do not care much for canned vegetables. Personal taste. The only canned vegetable I really like is creamed corn, which is in fact not keto friendly at all. So just blow me off on that one. But vegetables, you can dehydrate them. You can get freeze-dried vegetables. Freeze-dried vegetables are usually only cost-effective if you get them in like large bags. If you have a large family and you're getting like a large bag of freeze-dried vegetables, that's when it's cost-effective. You're not likely to find it in smaller quantities if you are by yourself or you have a very small family, just you, a spouse, maybe a kid. It might not be cost-effective. Dehydrating might be a better option. Absolutely, this can be done. Again, fun family project. Some things are just great dehydrated. Anybody who's ever had like sun-dried tomatoes will tell you that. And some things just really lend themselves to it very nicely. You can take your vegetables and make a paste and make, the way they make fruit roll-ups, you make a veggie roll-up. So many options. So can it be done? Absolutely. Is this going to be the cheapest way to fill your little emergency survival cupboard? No, it's not. But as I said, you're not eating the cheapest way you can be eating to begin with. Keto is not a diet choice based on economy. So can you do this? You bet you can. There are plenty of other things that you can and should store if you're on a keto diet. Things like your almond flour and your other carb alternatives, your artificial sweeteners. Usually those things come in plastic packages. That's when you take your mason jar or your used ghee jar. Jars like this will work as long as you have a nice seal on the inside. And that's when you take the lid off and you see that little ring. It's usually a reddish orange. Sometimes it's a white color. That's the seal. That's the part that comes in contact with the glass. You want to make sure that's in good shape. But then you just use any dry canning method, and it's very easy to do. We actually have some dry canning. I went out and got a dry canner. We are going to do that. I just need to get my jars and line that project up, but I'm going to put it on the agenda for the very near future because of this. Dry canning. Throw your almond flour into, your mason jar or any other kind of jar you have that you can seal off. Because plastic is not a good long-term storage solution. It's not an oxygen barrier, and that alone makes for problems. So if you want to store nuts, if you want to store your flours and your artificial sweeteners and your cocoa powders and things like that, absolutely just jars. Make sure, and you don't even need to take them out of their original packages. They can stay in the original package if you could just, roll it up and stick the whole thing in the jar. there are ways to do this. So again, store what you eat what you store. Take a look at what is in your diet. I know for me, when I first start looking superficially at what about meat, vegetables, how is this going to be stored? My first thought was, oh dear, that is a problem. But like I say, my second thought was, oh, I forgot about the salami and the bologna and the this and the that. And oh, and by the way, salami and bologna are probably not good keto choices because you really don't want heavily processed foods. Usually when a food is heavily processed like that, they've got tons of hidden carbs, not unlike the sneaky little can of clams. So but yes, there are ways to do this. And I'm thinking you know what you're not going to be able to do? One of the super big vegetables in keto, well, it's actually a fruit, but we treat it as a vegetable, is avocados. I have never seen an avocado successfully preserved. Have not. I have no idea how to do it. I have never seen a canned avocado. I have never seen a dehydrated or freeze-dried avocado. I don't know how that is done. And it's entirely possible that it just can't be done. So anybody who has tips on storing avocados, I would love to know about that, because that's one I'm drawing a blank. So that is our sort of 25 cents worth of keto food storage. Oh, and by the way, I should also throw this out too. There is another upside to storing keto-friendly foods. Because they are higher in protein and higher in fat, you're going to store less of it than you would. So remember I compared this to your box of pasta? Well, you're going to get a lot more mileage out of this can of tuna than you would out of an equivalent amount of pasta. So that's your upside, less storage space. All right, let's take a quick peek. Oh, no, actually, remember when we spoke about trivia and I said I would look up trivia for you because there was more to it than he said? In the Middle Ages, in the universities, they had the seven arts, basically. And they were divided into two groups. The trivium, and remember that came from the three roads, same thing as trivia, and the quadrivium, which is four. And that's because the branches of learning were subdivided and each split off into, in one case, four, and in the other case, three different branches. And the quadrivium, which was the higher level, was music, arithmetic, geometry. We consider those pretty much together, and astronomy. Those were the four. And by the way, astronomy was probably astrology. And yes, music was considered a science, and there are many people today who still consider it one. And then your lower level, which was the trivium, was grammar, logic, rhetoric. And so that was considered your sort of first degree, the grammar, logic, rhetoric, the trivium. And the word trivia, when we consider, just sort of little bunches of useless information, comes from the fact that that was acquired at the lower level, not at the higher level where you got the important information, like, astrology. All right, so anyway, I just wanted you to know I did follow up on that. So let's go back here and take a couple of these. We are still in his women. So this should be fun. Oh, it is already. Faint. once meant pretend. When a fencer feints, he makes a false motion with intent to deceive. This is just what the Victorian lady did when she would faint, for these weak sisters could solve any dilemma by swooning away. The French words feint, F-A-I-N-T, and feint, F-E-I-N-T, both meant pretended or feigned, and they came from feindre, which meant be cowardly, avoid one's duty, pretend. So when a girl faints, she may be feigning. Oh, how I would love to get my hands around this guy's throat. Glamour, made by word magic. It's strange to find that the glamour girl of today was named after the dull Latin grammar that we thumbed our way through in school. You see, all through the ages, there has been a mystery attached to words. The ancient Egyptian priests, for the sake of power, kept the art of reading and writing as a secret of the temple, and the people looked upon these skills with superstitious awe. Even in 16th century England, the ability to read and write was regarded with a fishy eye, and this special knowledge was associated with black magic. In that day, Latin was the language of the cultured few. Books were written in this dead speech, and the intellectuals conversed in Latin. A famous German professor was actually unfrocked because he dared to deliver a lecture in English. But the illiterate masses accredited the occult and devilish powers to those who were fluent in Latin and in Latin grammar. As the years went by, the letter R in the mysterious word grammar changed to L, as R often does in the mutations of language. That is because they are both glides. If he had any brains, he would have shared that with us. Thank you. Other modifications crept in, and a new word, glamour, was born that first carried with it the same Kabbalistic overtones that had attached to Latin grammar, for the word glamour originally meant magic, a spell, or charm. Now the meaning has been modified, and the Hollywood starlet who has glamour casts a spell over men instead of over Latin grammar. All right, so I don't know about you, but he has annoyed me enough for one day. Okay, quick update on the giveaway from yesterday. I would not call it a big success. As of the taping of this video, 4 of the 10 can openers in the giveaway were claimed. And people were saying I couldn't find the pinned comment and so on. Well, obviously 4 people did. In fact, one fellow got in touch with me, I believe it was 4 minutes after 12 noon. So it was up there and people did figure it out. But people were having problems. For example, they had to be signed in to their YouTube account, or they had to be able to retrieve comments on their phones. And there's not a lot I can say about that because everybody's phone or iPad or computer or whatever vehicle they're using to watch YouTube is going to be a little bit different, and there's no way of knowing, what they all are. So I ended up leaving the pinned comment up for a while longer. I'm going to let it run for at least 24 hours, but that's about it. So by the time this video airs, I will have closed down that giveaway. I will certainly give it a try again, but some people contacted me by email. Some people have managed to get some of my various email addresses. As I keep saying, it's no good. If you want to get in touch with me, do it through the video comments, because I have very good filters on my email accounts, because boundaries, please. But also keep in mind that a contest has rules, and if you decide you want to get in touch with me about a contest through an email address, that's like jumping the queue in the supermarket. You don't just get to cut in front of somebody else. It has rules, and I will not respond if you go outside of the rules. It's not fair to anyone else. Yes, I understand a lot of people are having trouble finding these pinned comments. I don't understand why that is, but it's clear I'm going to have to work out a different system next time I do a giveaway. But regardless, we don't get to jump the line just because we haven't been able to figure it out, because it's not fair to those who did in fact figure it out, or to the other people who are also not able to figure it out but didn't do something that they felt was jumping the line. So, having said that, remember, if you want to get in touch with me, comment on the videos. Just because you might have found an email address, or you might know how to get in touch with me through my Etsy shop, does not mean I am not going to employ my spam filters to make sure that the comments stay on the videos where everybody can participate and no one has preferential treatment. Because remember, this is a community. We all have to treat each other with the same fairness and the same courtesy. So don't jump the queue. All right. Have a great day, everyone. I am going to work out the kinks on these giveaways because I like them. And when they're successful, it makes me very, very happy. So I'm going to give it some thought, and I welcome your input as always. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.